we give women permission to do that and get off the timeline train?
Yeah.
Because we're talking basically going back to the timeline again.
Yes,
but now we're in midlife on the timeline. It's not the timeline of getting married, having babies,
kids,
excelling at the career. Now the timeline is, I got to find somebody again if they're not in a if they're not in a relationship, and make sure it's somebody that's going to be with me for the long term. How do we get women off that timeline?
What I feel like a lot of human beings don't do, this has nothing to do with gender, is what might be a technical term, Tamsin, is what I call a self-study, right? Companies do them all the time. Businesses do them all the time. But to really dig into yourself and say, how do you like to live? Do you want to wake up next to someone? Or do you really like having your own place to live? I say this as a perimenopausal woman who needs to sleep in a 60-degree room. And if it could be 55, air conditioners don't go that low, right? It's madness the way I need to sleep. I'm thinking I just want to be in my freezing cold room. But how do you like to live? And really say, and not because the world says you need to have this, if all those things were taken away, and I often will turn it into a thought experiment with someone, what would you like your life to look like? After all these years you've accumulated life experience, it's harder to answer that question when you're 25.
Sure it is.
It should be a lot more straightforward when you're 60. To say, these are the things, these are the rhythms I like. These are the things I like. This is how I like to spend a Saturday night. This is how I want this. I want these things. So if a person says, I like traveling with someone, I like looking at the tourist site and saying, isn't that beautiful? And someone else saying, I actually like traveling alone. Ask yourself those questions, because I think the problem is that when we seek out relationships from an unexamined space, we often find partners that play on our core wounds